He threw me off my chair during the family dinner and walked away like nothing happened, leaving me on the floor while my granddaughter Emma screamed and my dinner grew cold on the table. My own son Michael, 46 years old, had just physically assaulted me in my own dining room because I refused to sign documents that would give him my $400,000 house and life savings, then strolled out the front door like he'd just asked me to pass the salt. If you've ever been attacked by someone you raised and loved, if you know what it feels like to be thrown to the ground by your own child while other family members watch in horror, if you've ever had someone assault you and then act like you deserved it for not giving them what they wanted, pull up that chair and listen close. Because this story's going to show you that sometimes the most casual violence reveals the deepest cruelty, and sometimes the most powerful evidence comes from technology that predators don't even know is recording them. I'm Charles Williams, 71 years old, been living in Chicago my whole life, and spent 38 years teaching high school mathematics in the South Side before retiring with a modest pension and the satisfaction of knowing I'd helped thousands of kids understand that education was their pathway to a better life. My wife Dorothy and I bought our house in Bronzeville 43 years ago, raised our children Michael and Patricia there, and watched our neighborhood transform from struggling to thriving. Dorothy passed 2 years ago from complications related to Alzheimer's disease, and losing her nearly broke me in half. But I kept our house exactly the way she'd want it, clean, welcoming, and always ready for family dinners where we'd gather around the table that had hosted 40 years of homework sessions, birthday celebrations, and Sunday meals after church. That's when Michael and his wife Lisa started their campaign to help me manage what they called my complex financial situation. They'd visit every few weeks with suggestions about downsizing, simplifying my investments, or moving to a senior living community where I wouldn't have the burden of home maintenance and property management. Michael had always been ambitious, always focused on what he called maximizing opportunities and leveraging assets. As a sales manager for a medical device company, he made good money, but never enough to satisfy his desire for the kind of lifestyle he thought he deserved. After Dorothy died, and he realized how much equity I had in the house, suddenly he was full of advice about estate planning and financial optimization. That family dinner was supposed to be a normal Sunday evening, with Michael, Lisa, and their daughter Emma coming over for pot roast and mashed potatoes like we'd done hundreds of times before. Instead, it became the night I learned that some people will use family traditions as hunting grounds, and that my own son was willing to assault me in front of his 16-year-old daughter to steal what he thought should already be his. And if you're wondering how getting thrown off my chair led to audio evidence that not only convicted my son of elder abuse, but also resulted in a court judgment that protected every penny I'd ever earned, well, hit that subscribe button on Grandpa's Diaries, because this story is about to show you that sometimes the people who think you're too old and trusting to protect yourself are about to learn that modern technology can turn their own words into weapons against them. And sometimes the most devastating evidence comes from recordings they never knew existed. Michael used to be my star student, the son who'd sit at our kitchen table every night doing homework while Dorothy cooked dinner, asking me questions about algebra and geometry that showed he had a real gift for logical thinking. When other kids in our neighborhood were struggling with school or getting into trouble, Michael was talking about college scholarships and career plans that would take him far beyond the limitations of our South Side community. I remember helping him with his college applications when he was 17, explaining how student loans worked and what it would mean for our family to have a son with a business degree. "Dad," he said, sitting at that same dining room table where he would later assault me, "I'm going to make enough money so you and Mom never have to worry about anything. I'm going to take care of you the way you took care of me." Michael seemed to understand the values Dorothy and I tried to teach him: respect for education, appreciation for hard work, and the importance of family loyalty, over material success. When he graduated from Chicago State University and got his first sales job, Dorothy and I were so proud that we framed his diploma and hung it in our living room next to my teaching certificates. But somewhere along the way, Michael's ambition turned into something darker. He started measuring success only in dollars, talking about colleagues who made more money, complaining about people who had inherited wealth instead of earning it. When he married Lisa, a nurse from a middle-class family, I hoped she would help him stay grounded in the values that really mattered. Instead, Lisa seemed to fuel Michael's financial anxieties and material desires. She'd make comments about how old-fashioned our house was, how much money we were wasting on property taxes and maintenance, how we could optimize our resources by making different living arrangements. "Charles," she'd say during family visits, "you're sitting on a gold mine with this house. Have you thought about what you could do with all that equity?" The real problems started after Dorothy's funeral, when Michael inherited her life insurance policy and realized that it was just a small fraction of what our total estate was worth. Instead of being grateful for what his mother had left him, he started treating it as a down payment on everything else he thought he deserved. "Dad," he'd say during our monthly dinners, "you're 71 years old, living alone in a 4-bedroom house that's worth $400,000. Meanwhile, Emma needs money for college, Lisa and I are struggling with our mortgage, and you're just sitting on all this wealth like it's some kind of museum." The emotional manipulation was sophisticated and relentless. Michael would alternate between expressing concern for my welfare and guilt-tripping me about family responsibilities. He'd bring articles about elderly people who'd been scammed or injured because they lived alone, then suggest that I could help solve everyone's problems by restructuring my assets in ways that would benefit the whole family. The pressure campaign intensified over the 6 months leading up to the dinner assault, with Michael and Lisa making increasingly aggressive suggestions about what they called my estate optimization. They'd bring financial advisors to family gatherings, real estate agents who had opinions about my property value, and lawyers who specialized in elder care planning. During Easter dinner, just 3 months before the incident, Michael brought his friend David Chen, a financial planner who specialized in what he called intergenerational wealth transfers. David spent the entire meal explaining how much money I was losing by keeping my assets in traditional savings accounts and property ownership instead of more sophisticated investment vehicles. "Mr. Williams," David said over Dorothy's famous carrot cake recipe that I'd finally learned to make myself, "you're in a unique position to help your family while also protecting your own financial security. With the right legal structures, you could transfer ownership of your house to Michael while maintaining lifetime residence rights. It's a win-win situation." I listened politely while David explained various schemes for separating me from control of my property, family trusts, sale-leaseback arrangements, and gift tax strategies that would maximize Michael's inheritance while minimizing my control over my own assets. Every suggestion involved giving up ownership of things I'd worked my entire life to acquire. "Gentlemen," I said, setting down my coffee cup and looking directly at David, "I appreciate your expertise, but I'm not interested in transferring ownership of my house to anyone while I'm still living in it. When I'm ready to make those kinds of decisions, I'll make them myself." The silence around that dinner table was uncomfortable. David looked embarrassed, Michael looked frustrated, and Lisa looked angry that I'd rejected what they obviously considered generous financial advice. But I could see the calculation in their eyes, the wheels turning as they tried to figure out how to get around my resistance to their plans. After David left, Michael tried to convince me that I was being short-sighted about the family's financial future. "Dad, you're not thinking clearly about this. Emma's gonna need college money. Lisa and I could use help with our mortgage, and you're gonna need long-term care eventually. We're trying to plan ahead." "Son," I replied, "I've been planning ahead my entire adult life. That's how I was able to buy this house, raise 2 children, and save enough money for retirement. When I need help, I'll ask for it. When I want to give you money, I'll give it to you. But I'm not signing over my assets because you think it's a good idea. I should have recognized that conversation as the moment Michael chose greed over respect. But I still believed that the boy I'd raised to value education and integrity would never seriously consider hurting his father to get money. I was wrong about that. Dangerously wrong, and my trust almost cost me everything I'd worked for. The phone calls started a few weeks later, Michael checking on me multiple times a day, asking about my activities, my health, my ability to handle what he called complex financial decisions. "Dad, I'm worried about you living alone in that big house," he'd say. "Maybe we should set up some kind of regular monitoring system or have someone come by to help with household management." What he was really doing was building a case for my incompetency, documenting examples of confusion or forgetfulness that could be used later to justify taking control of my affairs. Every conversation became an evaluation, every interaction became evidence in a legal case I didn't know was being prepared against me. But I was starting to suspect that these weren't innocent family check-ins. Something about Michael's tone, about the repetitive nature of his questions, about the way he'd probe for information about my daily routines and decision-making processes, made me think he was building a file on me rather than just caring about my welfare. That's when I started recording our conversations on my phone. The assault happened on a Sunday evening in October, during what I thought was going to be a normal family dinner. Michael, Lisa, and Emma arrived at the usual time, and everything seemed pleasant enough at first. Emma helped me set the table, Lisa complimented the pot roast, and Michael seemed relaxed and talkative about his work and their recent vacation. But I'd learned to be suspicious of Michael's good moods, and I had my phone recording from the moment they walked in the door. Something about the way he and Lisa kept exchanging glances, about how they steered the conversation toward my health and daily activities, made me think this was another setup for their ongoing pressure campaign. After dinner, when Emma was in the living room doing homework, Michael's demeanor changed completely. He pulled out a folder of documents from his briefcase, and Lisa positioned herself between me and the kitchen like she was blocking my escape route. "Dad," Michael said, his voice suddenly cold and businesslike, "we need to have a serious conversation about your living situation. Lisa and I have been consulting with legal and financial experts, and everyone agrees that immediate action is needed to protect your assets and ensure your care." He spread documents across my dining room table. Power of attorney forms, property transfer deeds, bank account authorizations, everything needed to take complete control of my financial life. "These papers will ensure that your needs are taken care of while protecting your estate from taxes and potential healthcare costs," he continued. But his tone made it clear this wasn't a request. "Michael," I said, "we've discussed this before. I'm not ready to transfer control of my finances to anyone. I'm 71 years old, not 91, and I'm perfectly capable of managing my own affairs." That's when Lisa revealed her true nature. "Charles, you're being ridiculous," she screamed, her professional nursing demeanor completely gone. "You're living alone in a house that's too big for you, hoarding money that could help your family, being selfish and stubborn about decisions that affect all of us." Michael leaned forward in his chair, his face getting closer to mine in a way that felt threatening and intimidating. "Dad, you're going to sign these papers tonight, or we're going to have to take more serious action. I've already talked to lawyers about having you declared incompetent. Your age, your isolation, your obvious inability to think rationally about financial planning. It's all documented." "I'm not signing anything," I said, standing up from my chair and backing away from the table. "Michael, I want you and your family to leave my house right now." That's when he exploded. Michael grabbed the back of my chair and yanked it out from under me so hard that I crashed to the floor, my 71-year-old body hitting the hardwood with a sickening thud that echoed through the dining room. "You stubborn old fool," he screamed, standing over me while I lay on the floor trying to catch my breath. "You're gonna lose everything because you're too proud to accept help. You're gonna die alone in this house, and we're gonna get it anyway." Then he did something that still chills me to think about. He straightened his tie, picked up his documents, and walked out of my house like nothing had happened. No apology, no concern for whether I was injured, no acknowledgement that he'd just physically assaulted his elderly father. He just left me on the floor while Emma cried in the living room and Lisa followed him out without a word. But Michael had made a critical error. Every word of his threats, every moment of his assault, every second of his casual cruelty afterward, it was all recorded on my phone, which had been sitting on the table throughout the entire dinner, capturing evidence that would ultimately destroy him in court. After Michael and Lisa left that night, taking their sobbing daughter and their unsigned documents, I lay on my dining room floor for what felt like hours, staring at the ceiling and trying to process what had just happened. My own son had thrown me off my chair like I was a piece of furniture that was in his way, then walked out of my house like assaulting his father was just another item on his to-do list. The physical pain was bad enough. My back was throbbing, my hip was bruised, and I had cuts on my hands from trying to break my fall. But the emotional trauma was worse. This wasn't a moment of anger or a family argument that had gotten out of control. This was calculated violence from someone who had clearly been planning this confrontation for weeks or months. But unlike the helpless old man Michael thought he was dealing with, I had something he didn't know about. 47 minutes of high-quality audio recording that captured every word of his threats, every moment of his assault, and every second of his callous departure. My phone had been sitting on the dining room table throughout the entire evening, and every word was crystal clear. I spent that entire night listening to the recording, transcribing key portions, and realizing just how much evidence I had of not just the assault, but the months of psychological manipulation and financial coercion that had led up to it. Michael had revealed his entire criminal conspiracy on tape, including his plans to have me declared incompetent and his belief that he was entitled to my property while I was still alive. The next morning, I called Patricia Johnson, the best elder abuse attorney in Chicago, and asked her to come to my house immediately. "Ms. Johnson," I said, "my son assaulted me last night during a family dinner, and I have it all recorded on my phone. I need to press criminal charges and protect my assets before he tries this again." Patricia came to my house that afternoon with Detective James Thompson, a specialist in domestic violence cases involving elderly victims. When I played them the recording, their reactions were immediate and visceral. "Mr. Williams," Detective Thompson said, after listening to Michael throw me off my chair, "this is one of the clearest cases of elder abuse and family violence I've ever encountered. Your son committed assault and battery, criminal intimidation, and attempted financial exploitation. The fact that you have it all on audio makes this a prosecutor's dream case." We spent 3 hours that day documenting everything that had happened, not just the dinner assault, but the months of psychological pressure and financial manipulation that had preceded it. Patricia explained my legal options, criminal charges, civil lawsuits, and emergency court orders to protect my assets from further threats. "The power of this recording," Patricia explained, "is that it captures not just the violence, but the premeditation. Michael clearly planned this confrontation, brought legal documents, and had already consulted with lawyers about having you declared incompetent. This isn't a family dispute. This is organized crime." We filed the paperwork the next day. Criminal complaints for assault and elder abuse, civil lawsuits for intentional infliction of emotional distress and attempted fraud, and emergency petitions for restraining orders and asset protection. But the most important document was the motion for immediate asset freeze, requesting that the court prevent Michael and Lisa from accessing or influencing any of my financial accounts pending the outcome of our legal action. The audio recording was our nuclear weapon, 47 minutes of Michael and Lisa revealing their true characters, their criminal intentions, and their complete lack of remorse for the violence they were willing to use to steal my life's work. No jury would be able to listen to that recording and have any doubt about who the real criminals were in this case. The criminal trial took place 4 months later, and the courtroom was packed with people who'd heard about the case through media coverage and community outrage. Elder abuse cases involving middle-class families don't usually generate much public interest, but something about a son throwing his elderly father off a chair during Sunday dinner had captured people's attention and anger. Michael and Lisa had hired an expensive criminal defense team from downtown Chicago, lawyers who specialized in defending domestic violence cases and reducing felony charges to misdemeanors. Their strategy was to portray the whole incident as a family disagreement that had been blown out of proportion by an elderly man who couldn't accept his family's legitimate concern for his welfare. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," Michael's lead attorney said during opening statements, "this case isn't about elder abuse or criminal assault. This is about a concerned son trying to help his aging father make rational decisions about his financial security. Mr. Charles Williams is a proud man who recorded private family conversations because he was confused and paranoid about his family's motives. But their strategy completely collapsed the moment Patricia played the audio recording in court. The sound quality was perfect. Every word crystal clear, every emotion unmistakable, every moment of violence audible to everyone in that courtroom. The jury listened in stunned silence as Michael's voice filled the courtroom. "You stubborn old fool! You're going to lose everything because you're too proud to accept help." Then came the sound of my chair being yanked away, my body hitting the floor, and Michael's casual comment about how I was gonna die alone in this house. Judge Robert Martinez, a distinguished Hispanic man in his 60s who'd built his career prosecuting family violence cases, stopped the recording after just 10 minutes. "Counselors," he said, "I've heard enough to understand the nature of this case. This recording speaks for itself about the defendant's criminal intent and complete lack of remorse." Detective Thompson testified about the investigation that had revealed Michael and Lisa's elaborate plan to take control of my assets. They'd consulted with multiple lawyers about competency proceedings, researched guardianship laws, and even spoken with real estate agents about selling my house before they legally owned it. The defendants weren't trying to help Mr. Williams with his finances, Detective Thompson explained to the jury. They were planning to steal his house, his savings, and his independence. The assault we hear on the recording was the culmination of a long-term criminal conspiracy. Patricia's presentation of the evidence was methodical and devastating. She played key excerpts from the recording, explained the legal significance of each threat and assault, and demonstrated how Michael's actions fit the textbook definition of elder abuse and financial exploitation. "Members of the jury," Patricia said during her closing argument, "you've heard Mr. Michael Williams, in his own words, recorded without his knowledge, revealing exactly who he is when he thinks no one is listening. This is a man who physically assaulted his 71-year-old father, then walked away like nothing happened. This is what elder abuse sounds like when the predators think they're safe." Judge Martinez's verdict was swift and comprehensive. Michael was convicted of elder abuse, assault and battery, and attempted financial exploitation. Lisa was convicted as an accessory and co-conspirator. Their sentences included 18 months in prison, 3 years probation, and a joint order to pay $300,000 in damages for the medical expenses, legal costs, and emotional trauma they'd caused. This court has rarely heard such clear evidence of premeditated elder abuse, Judge Martinez declared from the bench. The defendants' own words condemn them more effectively than any prosecutor could. They are permanently banned from contact with the plaintiff, permanently excluded from any inheritance of his assets, and permanently restrained from any involvement in his financial affairs. 3 years have passed since that Sunday dinner assault, and my house in Bronzeville has become a fortress of peace and security, protected by court orders that ensure Michael and Lisa can never again threaten my safety or my property. The dining room where I was attacked has been redecorated, but I still eat my meals at the same table where Dorothy and I shared 40 years of family dinners, now knowing that no one can ever again use that space to hurt me. Michael and Lisa served their prison sentences and have been making their court-ordered payments on schedule, probably because they know that any violation would result in additional criminal charges and extended jail time. The $300,000 judgment has funded home security upgrades, legal protections, and a scholarship fund for education students who understand that teaching is about building character, not just delivering information. My granddaughter Emma visits me regularly now, having chosen her grandfather's values over her parents' greed and violence. She's a senior in high school, planning to study social work in college so she can help protect elderly people from the kind of abuse her father inflicted on me. Unlike her parents, Emma understands that real family means protection, not predation. "Grandpa," she asked me last weekend while we were working on her college applications at the same dining room table where her father had assaulted me, "do you think Dad will ever understand what he did wrong?" I thought about that question while we reviewed her essay about why she wanted to work with vulnerable populations, about how witnessing family violence had taught her the importance of advocacy and protection. "Baby girl," I finally said, "some people learn from their mistakes, and some people just learn to blame other people for the consequences. Your father chose greed over love, and that's a choice he'll have to live with for the rest of his life." The audio recording that saved my life and my assets is stored in multiple locations now, with my attorney, with the police, and in cloud storage that ensures it can never be lost or destroyed. 47 minutes of evidence that revealed who Michael really was when he thought no one was listening, and that ultimately protected me from someone who saw my age as weakness rather than wisdom. I learned something important during those months of legal battles and family destruction. Sometimes the most casual violence reveals the deepest cruelty, and sometimes the most powerful evidence comes from technology that predators don't even know exists. Michael thought he could assault me and walk away without consequences because he underestimated both my preparation and my determination to protect what I'd worked for. The neighborhood is quieter now, filled with the sounds of children playing and families living normal lives rather than the echoes of domestic violence and elder abuse. My neighbors, especially Mrs. Rosa Martinez, who heard some of the commotion that terrible Sunday night, check on me regularly and have become an extended family that actually understands what family means. My will has been updated to reflect everything that happened. Emma will inherit my house and savings when she graduates from college, along with detailed instructions about using that inheritance to help other families avoid the kind of trauma we experienced. Michael will receive exactly $1, along with a copy of the audio recording that destroyed his life and a note explaining why character matters more than blood relation. The dining room table where Dorothy and I shared so many happy memories, where I helped countless students with their homework, where I was assaulted by my own son, remains the heart of my home. But now it's protected by legal orders and security systems that ensure no one can ever again turn family dinner into a crime scene. Tell me in the comments, have you ever had family members use gatherings and traditions as opportunities to manipulate or abuse you? Have you ever discovered that technology could capture evidence when human witnesses failed you? Have you ever realized that sometimes the most important protection comes from recording devices that predators don't even know are running? And if this story reminded you that age doesn't equal helplessness when you're smart enough to document the truth, hit that subscribe button for Grandpa's Diaries. See you.